Okay, Entergalatic, starring Kid Cudi, animated film on Netflix, right? Full spoilers. Yeah, I really like this film. First thing I like, just looking at my notes real quick. I like. I remember the first thing that came to mind when I started the film. It was the psychedelic kind of look of the film throughout. It was just certain images and also the music. Let me start with the psychedelic look of the film. There were times in this movie where I remember there was like a lads' night out kind of a sequence, and they were just like high as heck, taking all types of stuff, consuming, just taking all types of ish. And there was a point where the main character, played by Kid Cudi, was so high he was looking at people like they were from another dimension. The imagery, yeah, there's a certain shot where people were like floating, and I loved it. And there was like certain other things like dream sequences. I can remember at the start of the movie, like certain like sequences of space and all that stuff. This movie has some surreal moments in it that I do appreciate and I love. And then the second thing that stuck out to me was just the vibe from the music. I definitely, because I'm aware that Intergalactic is the same name of Kid Cudi, Kid Cudi's album at the moment. So I'm defo gonna try and find some of those songs online after this. Yeah, boy. I wish I wrote down, because I was watching it with subtitles. I wish I wrote down which song stuck out to me, because yeah, there was a couple that I liked by him. There was even there was a scene where you're first formally introduced to the girl's name is Meadow. I think she's played by Jessica Williams, the actress and comedian, and they play like some old song that's fire. I think it's like a soul song. I hope it is. I forget the name of the song, but that stuck out to me. There were certain musical choices that I loved. Apart from that, oh, you know what? I loved the banter about men coming from women and about women coming from men. There were certain situations where people would talk about their past, like kind of exes and all that situations they've been in terms of their love and relationships past, that were just funny to me. But at the same time, there was obviously some realness there. It wasn't just like to be comedic for comedic sake. And I liked that. And you know what? To even get deeper, another thing that I liked about this movie, they didn't angle it like anyone had anything to be ashamed about. It was I think the term was sex positivity for both the men and the women when they were recounting various like experiences that they had to their friends, to their respective circles. I remember a scene where a girl was talking to the main female character, Meadow, that I referenced earlier, about past dates she had, where she just was like, you know what, F it, I just want to smash. The same thing with the dudes, where one of the male friends to the Kid Cudi and Timothy Chalamet's character mentioned something about, oh, I was with this girl once, just got to smashing. Like, it means like no long thing. I like that. Yeah, that it's not compared to other shows, certain Marvel Disney shows where people get upset about the littlest thing sexual that happens on the show or associated with sex, sexuality. It is nice to watch something where there's no stigma attached to something like that. Apart from that, what else do I like about this film? Oh, you know what? I forgot. Yeah. There was a little capitalism commentary in this movie that I didn't even really clock until the very end of the movie, where it was in your face. But yeah, they made it clear throughout this movie, like I believe Kenya Barris and Kid Cudi wrote this film, and it made it clear about that feeling of selling out for the man, about doing something, especially when you're like a talent from a minority background, and how you morph into something else when you get to the top that is more inauthentic. That, you know, you kind of, you buy that corporate, you sell out your soul for corporatism, you know. But in other ways, I just noticed throughout this movie, there was like when he was riding his bike, I just realized that maybe it's a race situation, because I've heard stereotypes about brothers in places like New York, you can't catch a cab. I don't know how much that still exists today. Someone clarify that. But I just noticed the fact that he was riding his bike a lot. That apparently was more cost efficient or just easier for him than taking a cab. Was, you know, I don't know which is faster in a place like New York. I've heard there's traffic there, but it's very telling. Do you know what I mean? But there's something else that I don't want to spoil. That is great from the end of the movie, and they keep bringing it up, and then you don't, until the very end. They reveal like a plot twist as far as that conversation is concerned, about capitalism, about people being sold an idea, and it turned out to be a scam. But that's the one thing I don't want to spoil about this movie. Everything else, I'll spoil it. But yeah, definitely watch this movie. There's something in this film that shows how easily people are taken advantage of because of something that they genuinely yearn for in their lives. Certain things, right? Um, that's for the most part the stuff I like as far as this movie's concerned. Critiques, the animation I noticed early on in the movie, it had a feeling where it felt stuck, if that makes sense, or like it wasn't completely fluid sometimes when people were moving and talking. And I noticed that, but maybe it's part of the aesthetic. I'm not too sure. I'm not an animation expert. It was just something. Um, I've seen this movie. I watched it halfway through the first time. The second time I started to watch the movie, that's when I watched it all the way through. And I started to notice that the second time on my second watch. But that's more, again, a nitpick. And then another thing that is more or less a nitpick too, not really a hardcore critique. I wish there was more kind of surreal sequences in this film. Certain dream scenes that people were having in this film from certain characters' point of view. There was a great scene where someone fell asleep at work and they were dreaming about something chasing them, and that was great, and that was cool. Even that, actually, speaking of what I mentioned earlier about that commentary a little bit on capitalism, that links back to that as well through the dream sequence that I'm referencing. But something is chasing them, yeah, and that was cool. There were certain other things. I think one or two other characters had kind of like a daydream or a dream sequence. Something, certain surreal images were in this movie that I liked, but I wish they kind of went even weirder and in your face with it, because it's not live action, it's animated. Like, don't be afraid. I think maybe they didn't want to make it seem too experimental, the movie. I still wanted it to feel like a solid act 1, act 2, act 3 film, instead of like, oh, we're trying to do something so different. But no, that's not how it came across. That was the aesthetic of the movie from the start. It was surreal. It was from certain characters' point of view, who, especially when you see the amount of times people are just casually bunning the zoo or something, taking something, eating something, you realize, yeah, you would see your perception would be a bit warped if um you're a character in this world, right? One of the characters in this world. And yeah, I feel like they should have had a couple more focused, kind of abstract scenes that just reinforce certain people's perspective on things, right? But that's just me again. Tell me your thoughts down below, guys. Those are more or less my thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Other than that, guys, signing off. Salute.